Perfectionism is a common problem in the art and writing community, and it's something that almost every creative person has faced. However, I start to wonder, with so many people experiencing perfectionism, how did this even begin in the first place? Why is it that our culture is so focused on perfectionism and getting the artwork or writing perfect more so than the actual creative process itself? Today I want to discuss perfectionism in art, how to avoid it, and how to focus more on creating art because you enjoy it, not because you want it to be perfect. So, like every creative person, perfectionism is something that I have also experienced in my own creative process, and I think it's part of the process. However, lately it feels like there has been such a focus on perfectionism, and I think the issue is the fact that with the rise of social media and posting the artwork or writing on social media, there becomes more of a focus on whether the artwork or writing is good enough rather than actually enjoying the process of creating the art or writing. I remember when I first started creating artwork when I was, in particular anime artwork, when I was about 10 years old. I didn't obviously have any social media, so I just drew because I really loved drawing, and I drew so much, and that was how I originally began drawing anime and manga in particular, because I would find manga panels that I really enjoyed and I would redraw it, and that was a process that I did for a really long time, and no one was telling me whether or not my artwork was good enough. I had nothing to compare it to, so my 10-year-old self thought that my artwork was the best thing in the world, and that's a great mindset to have, considering that the artwork, looking back now, was not really the best proportionally drawn artwork that I could have been drawing, but my 10-year-old self loved it, and that was the important part. But nowadays, if I was a 10-year-old and I was starting to draw and I had so much social media around me, I would be looking at every single other artist out there and going, well, because my artwork looks like this sketch, it's not good enough, and that would have started perfectionism a lot more early. I feel like this perfectionism trend is starting way earlier in people because of the influence of all of the other artists out there. People are starting to forget that their beginner's journey as an artist is being compared to people who have been drawing for many, many years. I think the main issue is the fact that people believe that once they get to a certain point, whether it be in art or writing, they'll get to a point and say, right, my artwork is perfect now, there is nothing more that needs to be improved on. But that's not actually true. I think it's a very misleading mindset, because even if you are learning so many things, there is still so many more things to learn in art or writing. You're never going to be a complete expert, and even if you get to the level of someone that you once admired, you're going to then see someone else and think that you want to get to that level. So perfectionism comes from you striving to get to that level, but it's also you overthinking your own creative process and looking at your own artwork or writing and feeling like it's not good enough because you're not at the level that you want to be yet. However, I think it's really important to take a step back and think about what you want to get from your creative process, from creating art or writing. What is this really about? Are you hoping to make a career out of this? Are you hoping to get well known on social media? Or are you just doing it because you enjoy it? For the latter reason, it's going to be a lot harder for you to make progress on your creative journey, because that type of process means that you are constantly trying to get validation from other people, whether it be from social media or other people in your art or writing career. Whereas if you're doing it because you enjoy it, it's going to be a lot more validating to yourself. You're going to be giving more validation to yourself rather than getting the validation from someone else. So that's something really important to keep in mind as well. The perfectionism is not something that will eventually end. It's an internal process. It's not an external process. And I think it can be easy to see it as something that happens outside of you. When you see other artwork and writers and you think, oh, that artwork's amazing, I'm never going to get my art or writing to that level, which is not true. Eventually you will improve your artwork enough to get to that level, but maybe once you're by that point, if you still struggle with perfectionism, you're still not going to see your artwork as good enough. And that is the main issue here. It's really important to keep in mind that every single expert also started at a similar point. They were also once a beginner too. And no matter how fast they improve, they're still going to have many things that they need to improve on, or things that they struggle with as an artist or a writer. And that improvement is never going to end. They're constantly going to be improving and changing over time. And that is the remarkable thing about creative projects. You're always going to improve and find new things to enjoy about the process. So I think it's really important to try to avoid creating artwork based on what everyone else may think of it, and instead create artwork if you like it or not. And I think the main way to begin to do this is you sort of have to take a step back from social media and start drawing just for you, not for anyone else. One issue that I've found with social media, more particularly with things like Instagram or Twitter, is that it felt like I would have to keep posting more and more artwork if I wanted to be able to reach people with my artwork, and that's not a very healthy process. It's not very healthy to be uploading on a frequent schedule or posting based on an algorithm in the hopes of getting your artwork more noticed. That's not very healthy. I noticed that back in the early days of artwork, when I was about 13, I started posting more frequently on DeviantArt, and DeviantArt was really good for me because I was being able to draw with other creators my age, and we were all at a similar level, so we were there to support each other and learn from each other, and I think that was a really healthy and good process. And back at that time, there was not really any major like system. There was favorites, of course, but I never looked at an artwork and went, oh wow, this artwork has so many favorites, so it must be better. No, I just looked at the artwork and thought, wow, they drew that character really well, I really like that. So it wasn't so much as such a like system, but I feel like now with, things like Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, you kind of see the likes first before you see the artwork, and it doesn't create a very healthy dynamic for artists or writers. So when you then see the ratings, the likes or reviews, especially when you're talking about writing, people then judge the book or the artwork based on that writing, and they're not actually based on that rating, and they're not actually getting their own opinion of it. So this is something that then creates this very unhealthy mental process when it comes to creating art or writing. It's easier to then fall into perfectionism because you then want to create artwork or writing that feels good enough to be able to post. And this is something that I struggle with, and this is why I don't really post as much on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook anymore as an artist, because I struggle so much with that perfectionism that I feel like, when is the artwork good enough to post? See, when I was about 13 and I was posting things on DeviantArt, I would post, sketches and other things like that. If I drew something, then I'd be like, yeah, this is good enough to post, I wasn't worried about that, and no one ever criticized me for it. Everyone else was posting sketches too. But nowadays on, other social media, it just feels like everyone puts in so much effort into the artwork to make sure that it is perfect to post, that when there is something that is less than perfect to post, like a sketch or a draft, it feels like it's not good enough to post, and that maybe you should be, putting more effort into it. And it's so overwhelming as an artist or a writer to have so many requirements for being able to put your artwork or your writing out there. So with all of this in mind, we've discussed where the issue is coming from. How do we stop it? How do we deal with perfectionism as artists or writers? What do we do as artists or writers? How can we be an artist or writer and avoid being overwhelmed by perfectionism and trying to be good enough as an artist or writer? Well, first of all, as we discussed, you have to change where your validation comes from. You have to make sure that your validation as an artist is coming from you internally and is not coming from some external force. It's not coming from what people might say on social media or how many, likes or reviews you get. It needs to come from you. Otherwise, you're never going to feel satisfied as an artist. You're never going to be able to feel like your artwork's good enough, because it's never going to be good enough for every single person out there. Your artwork is not going to appeal to every single person, just like your writing is not going to appeal to every single person. But if it appeals to you, then that is one more person on your side. So You have to make sure that when you are creating for you and no one else. And that's the same if you plan on even making this a career. If this is something you really want to do, if you want to make artwork as your job or you want to make writing as your job, it can't only be for that purpose. You have to also be doing it for you as well, for your own satisfaction and for your own happiness. Otherwise, you're constantly going to be trying to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It's not going to give you that satisfaction as an artist or a writer. Now, another thing as well, it's really important to focus on the things you do like about your artwork. And in that process, it's important to not only focus on the mechanical side of creating. It's important to create things because you like creating it, not because you're just trying to improve. So, as I said, in my creative journey when I was about 10 years old, I drew heaps of Inuyasha fan arts. I would sketch all of the characters and I would pause the anime and I would draw them, and that's what I did when I was 10. And the walls of my room and the roof were covered in sketches of Inuyasha. That is how much of a fan I was, and that was my kickstart into creating anime and manga drawings. But that's because I enjoyed it. There was no one telling me I had to draw it a certain way. There was no one telling me that I had to learn the anatomy and proportions first. They were very disproportionate, but I still enjoyed it. And that's the thing. You can't focus too much on the mechanical side of the process and not so much on the illustrating process. Because I learned in my own time when I was ready to learn certain things. For a long time, when I was about 13 to 14, all of my characters, I would not draw their hands because I hated drawing hands. So all of their hands were drawn behind their back, and that did slow me down when it came to drawing hands in the future. But eventually I did learn how to draw hands, and I think I'm pretty good at drawing hands now. So if I was forced to do that at 13 or 14, I wouldn't have gotten this far. I would have been bored. I would have given up because I would have gone, this is too hard. I don't want to do this. And that's exactly the same with writing as well. While I do recommend writing short stories to practice first, if you want to go into a longer project or you want to try something else, then go ahead. It's your writing project, and it's important to have fun with it and do something that you like. When I first created manga, when I was about, I think I was about 14 when I did this, 13 to 14, I created my very first manga series. I sketched 500 pages of this thing that no one has ever seen. And I don't think I want anyone to see it because it's not a very good story. But I thought it was the best thing ever. And that is the important part. So even though no one ever saw it, even though I didn't share it with anyone, I did share drawings of my OCs on DeviantArt, but I didn't share the actual story. Even though I didn't do that, I still created it because I drew it. I drew those 500 pages because I liked doing it. Not because I wanted anyone else to tell me whether they liked it or not. I did it because I liked it. And I think that's the point you need to get to with your writing and your artwork. You need to get to the point that if no one else sees this, that's okay, because I enjoyed doing it. And that is how you fix perfectionism. Perfectionism comes from you enjoying the creative process and just doing it for you. Not doing it for anyone else, not doing it for random people on social media who you don't even know, and also not doing it just for your career, just to make money or something like that. You're just doing it for you because you like it. And that is where you kickstart your creative journey. You will become a better artist or writer once you write and draw for you. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, everyone. I know this video was a little different than my usual style of video, but this topic has been going through my mind. It's been like bouncing in my mind for the last 2 weeks, and I've been like, all right, I just need to sit down and talk about this unscripted. I'm just going to sit down, I'm just going to talk about this. But a lot of you guys as well have also been saying that you have been struggling with perfectionism, and I've been there. I definitely have been there. And it's a part of the process as creators. And it made me start to think, well, where does this even come from? Why are we all struggling so much with perfectionism? So I hope that this helped to answer some of your questions. And I think the creative process is really fun. That's why I create my own manga and I write my own stories, because I enjoy doing it. That's the most important part. And I hope you can find ways to overcome your perfectionism and find ways to create because you enjoy it. Artwork that is created because you enjoy it is the most beautiful artwork of all. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!